So, well, what a record collection.
Yeah, there's a few Alan Parsons productions in there somewhere.
But like you said, you don't play them, right?
Don't play records, no. They're just for show. But they look very pretty, don't they? Yeah.
They do look pretty.
Okay. Shall we go straight into it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got no cheat sheet?
No, we're just going to, they sent me a long list of questions and I said, no, I know, Alan, we're just going to talk. Okay. So, Alan, so you're going to be the ambassador for the High End Fair this year, which is what I did last year. And I think, for me, it makes perfect sense because I think you're someone that's known, certainly for making records with a very high standard of sonic excellence, very high quality. You know, certainly that was one of the things I loved about sound of your records, just the sort of the beauty of the sound. So I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that's always been something very important to you, to make records that sound beautiful. Sonically, everything sounds good.
That's always the goal.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a little bit of luck involved in getting a good sound sometimes.
For sure. Well, with music in general, there's a lot. Yeah.
But obviously, my original existence as artist was stemmed from being an engineer and producer.
Mm-hmm.
So if I made crappy sounding records, it wouldn't have really worked.
Wouldn't it look good on your CV? No.
Right.
Have you made any crappy sounding records?
Oh, lots.
Okay,
my very first recording as engineer was with the Hollies, and it was a song called Gasoline Alley Bread. It was a small hit, but
okay,
I was not pleased with it.
Okay. And did that kind of inspire you to want to get better and to?
Oh, of course, yeah. But I had the ideal training. You know, I mean, growing up through the ranks of Abbey Road was, you know, a great privilege to have worked with some of the greatest engineers
and some of the greatest artists as well. You know, obviously, famously, you worked on Abbey Road for the Beatles and Dark Side of the Moon, which for a lot of people, including myself, is one of the gold standard. You know, sonically, one of the most beautiful sounding records that's ever been made. So, and of course you've continued.
Well, you get the job of being president of my new fan club.
I'll accept it gratefully. Yeah. No, but I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that, and obviously that goes through your Alan Parsons Project records as well. There's an aspect of feeling like you're going on a kind of journey when you listen to one of those records. There's a sense of flow. There's a sort of beauty in the sound. And of course, that's something that in the 21st century, people wonder whether that's still relevant, you know, because many people listen to now music on, you know, in sort of compressed form, on you know, little headphone buds in their ears while they're out jogging or whatever. So I suppose the next question to ask, is there still a place for that degree of, you know, sonic quality in the 21st century?
I'm encouraged by the renaissance that vinyl seems to be enjoying right now. And that means that people are back into their living rooms listening to a record from start to finish, you know, maybe lowering the lights a bit and, you know, just enjoying music as opposed to, like you said, listen to a medley of, you know, completely unrelated songs.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The playlist mentality, yeah.
I'm encouraged by the fact that vinyl is enjoying a renaissance right now. And that means that people do care about listening to you know, not just one song by one artist and then another song by another artist, like they do when they're listening on a train on the earbuds on a playlist. And the whole concept of playlist, it seems wrong to me somehow.
Yeah, me too. I think we're old-fashioned in that respect. But also not only vinyl, but also 5.1, which I know you're, like myself, you're also an advocate of the sort of immersive experience, and you've remixed some of your new record and some of your classic records also in 5.1. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, we did the first album, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. That went out in Surround a couple of years ago now. But I'm pleased to tell you that the 5.1 mix of Eye in the Sky won the Immersive Grammy this year.
Congratulations. So, nominated 4 times, never won it. That's me, I'm saying.
Beat you. I was nominated 13 times before I won a Grammy.
Oh, really? Okay, so I've got some ways to go yet. Okay. But anyway, congratulations.
Oh,
no hard feelings. Couldn't happen to a nicer fellow. So that, I mean, that must
But
encourage
you get a
also.
lot of work that I would have liked to have got. I mean,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Such as
I
what?
would have-
Okay.
Well, I love your Tears for Fears.
Okay, thank you.
remix.
Yeah.
And would have gladly done that. But,
So obviously that idea of people sitting in a room. I mean, this is my listening room, and this is a space that I've created specifically to immerse myself in the listening experience. So obviously that's not something that's gone completely away. There are people that are constructing, 5.1 spaces and vinyl rooms in order to just enjoy that kind of old-fashioned, if you like, experience of being inside the music. And obviously that's something that the high-end fair, I guess, that's the kind of people that are coming to that. That's what they're kind of aiming to do. So that's a very, very encouraging thing. But I just wonder, do you have any sort of thoughts about where the future of that kind of listening experience is going?
I mean, 5.1 surround has its roots in home theatre, in cinema. So there's not enough people out there, unfortunately, realising that it is a great medium for music as well as soundtracks to films. And I think if you have a decent 5.1 system at home, that will encourage you to listen to an album start to finish, which is really what I'm so disappointed that people don't do that anymore.
Yeah, me too.
They don't sit down and listen to a whole record. But 5.1 is actually pretty good, even in my view, even if you have a budget system. I mean, it's still better than any stereo would be if you want to have that immersive experience.
But I guess 5.1 is it's fair to say it's very much a niche thing. It's not something that most people are going to have, as indeed quad was, I guess, in the 70s. But one thing that's been really encouraging to me is you have artists now like the Beatles doing their catalogue in 5.1. And I'm kind of hopeful that that's going to encourage people that have never experienced 5.1 to say, wow, I'm going to go out and buy a 5.1 system just so I can hear Abbey Road in 5.1, my favourite album. So that's been encouraging to me.
I enjoy mixing. I enjoy mixing in 5.1. And I had the opportunity on my latest album to pretty much design the entire production around what the surround mix would sound like.
Right, that's interesting. So
we never monitored in 5.1 during the recording.
Okay, but you're always in the back of your mind.
Always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I'm like that too. Yeah. So whereas before I might have tracked an acoustic guitar twice, now I'm thinking, let's track it 4 times. We're going to have one in each corner. Yeah, which is interesting. It kind of affects the way you think of it. So I mean, obviously you've been making records for a very long time now. What's your favourite part of the process? Is it the mixing, or is it the?
Interestingly, I regard mixing as being a little bit of a formality.
Okay.
I'm likely to be listening and essentially printing all the effects and things that reverbs and all that stuff. It's just another way of doing it. If when you're actually in the recording process, doing the final overdubs, solos, vocals, all that stuff, then once it's done, I kind of,
it's kind of already there.
Kind of already there.
Do you kind of mix?
And I didn't have to spend more than a day on any one song.
Wow.
So
professional.
Do you think you have the same feelings about mixing, or is it different?
I think, and you might be able to give it some insight on this, because obviously you've kind of lived through the transition from analog to digital audio workstation recording. What I find, particularly with the latter, is that you're kind of mixing as you go. And I might be wrong, but I imagine that wasn't necessarily the case in the days when you were working with tape, because you don't have that total recall that you have with...
It's not just total recall, it's the fact that in the old days, you just had to push things up and down because there was no automation.
Of course, yeah.
And that's, in the workstation environment these days, you can just get every track,
exactly where you want it.
Exactly where you want it.
So it's almost like you're kind of gradually working towards the mix as you record. I mean, certainly for me, I record a vocal, I put the compressor I want it, I put the EQ I want it, I put the effects I want it, I position it in the mix exactly as I want it. And of course, you're always kind of tweaking as you go along, but by the time you get to the end of the recording, tracking, you've kind of already got the whole picture there. And I remember, I did start at the very tail end of the analog recording era, and I remember the frustration of kind of working on something but not really being able to hear the full picture.
Right.
Until you got to the mixing process, and then it was like, okay, faders are all down, how are we going to mix this track now? So, I mean, do you like that? Do you like that kind of, the more...
I just like the fact that it's not completely total record, because I have every track coming up on faders on my console.
Oh, you still do? Okay.
I have a 32 channel console.
Okay, see, I just work in a computer.
Yeah. Yeah, I would feel that I'd wasted my money buying a brand new Rupert Neve console.
I wish you probably would. It would be wasted on me, yeah. Okay.
But to go back to what you're saying, the whole sort of concept of mixing has become much more automatic, and that the reason I didn't have to spend all a day on each song for my latest record is just because a lot of that work is done. That needs to be pushed up a little bit. That needs to be taken out. That needs to be wiped. All that stuff. Whereas when you were working with analog, if you had dirt that you didn't want, you had to take it out.
Right.
Or wipe it. Whatever it was.
And also, I think another thing we should maybe talk about is because we've already touched on the kind of transition from analog to digital, just the sonic properties of those two things, because obviously now you're working, I guess you're exclusively working with, you don't work with tape anymore, right?
No. Is anybody?
Well, that's the question. One of the things that audiophiles, so-called audiophiles, will talk about a lot is how things sounded better in the analog days, in the analog domain. So I'm sure they'd be very interested to hear someone like yourself. What's your perspective on something like that?
When CDs first came out, everybody went, wow,
yeah,
doesn't that sound great?
Clean.
There's no crackles and no pops. But we've, over the years, since the late 70s when that started, our hearing has improved. We've learned what artifacts, unpleasant artifacts that CD does possess. But
CDs are a relatively low resolution, isn't it? So what about, do you record at 96K?
96K.
So if you listen to digital recording at 96K 24-bit, which is what I record at, and I'm sure you record at too, is that a significant difference to the sound of a well-recorded analog recording, for example?
I think
the gap's narrowed significantly.
Digital electronics is still quite young, and it is improving all the time. The converters of yesteryear were nothing compared with the converters of today. And a CD with a good converter is going to sound a lot better than a CD from through a nasty ancient converter. But I think we've now got to the stage where digital electronics is getting very close to the quality of analog. And one day, I think we'll look back and say, almost laughing at ourselves, what were we saying was wrong with digital recording? Yeah.
So out of interest, I'm curious, because I do use these things. Do you use the analog tape simulator, the digital plugins that allow you to simulate the sort of signature of analog tape?
I've not found it necessary to use a tape emulator yet. One of the things I loved about when I transgressed from analog tape to essentially straight into the computer was the transient, and the transients, particularly on drums. Some people like the sound of drums being slightly softened.
So you prefer digital?
I preferred the
You prefer
the
to
punch.
hear the spike, as it were.
Yeah.
You like that spike. Okay.
I like the spike.
I guess that's what a lot of people that favour analog are saying I'm guessing that's what they don't like. They like that. A lot of people talk about, certainly they talk about the difference between vinyl and CD, and they talk about the difference between analog and digital as there being this kind of warmth. that they don't hear in digital. And I think a lot of that is probably down to what you say, the softening of those spikes and those transients. But as someone that's recording music, you kind of want to hear come out what you put in, don't you?
Yes, I mean that's the ideal, of course. And I remember that we would at Abbey Road we would have a drummer playing a kick drum, and hearing it coming on line in and line out off tape, and we're going to say it doesn't sound anything like a kick drum anymore. Right. But if you did that same test on analog, you'd say, "Well, that's pretty close. That's sounding pretty good."
Right. I guess it's a different sound. It's a sound that some people prefer. But I think, I mean, I do. I mean, I've kind of experimented with the tape simulation plugins. I don't really know what they do. I didn't grow up in the era of analog tape. I'm not quite sure what it's doing. But sometimes I put it on and it says, you know what, that does sound somehow more golden. It has a more kind of...
on drums in particular, or on everything?
I tend to use it on across the mix. So sometimes I'll create a mix and then I'll just try putting like an analog tape simulator across the mix. And sometimes it does something. I don't know what it's doing, but it does something. The top end just sounds a little bit sweeter. The bottom end sounds just a little bit warmer. And it's like, to me, that's like, oh, okay, so that's what analog tape did or does.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure, because obviously it's a digital sort of like simulation of it. And I think sometimes it does work, like for something electronic, it wouldn't work, but for something with like acoustic guitars and lots of harmony vocals, I think it tends to do something which I think I like.
Did you add some tape hiss?
Yeah.
That's something that,
isn't that
you do
strange?
have the opportunity to do.
Well, isn't it funny now that we talk about, you know, when CDs first came out and everybody was so happy, there's no hiss, there's no vinyl crackle. And now it's like 30, 40 years later, there's almost a nostalgia for those, like you say, you use the word artifacts, those artifacts of the analog era. So you have a lot of these kind of electronic guys, these trip hop guys, adding the sound of vinyl crackle to the music, and there's something about it that's really appealing. I mean, I've done it myself, and also, yeah, tape hiss. Yeah, how strange is that? What a strange species we are. So, Alan, I wanted to ask you. I kind of already know, because I was at the High End Fair last year. I was the ambassador last year, but you're going to be doing it this year. What kind of expectations do you have about the fair and the kind of people that maybe go to the fair?
There has always been this incredible divide between professional audio and high-end hi-fi. And of course, I've been to countless pro audio shows in my career. I've had a little bit of experience with hi-fi shows. I've been to a couple of conventions in London. I'm expecting to see, you know, a pretty spectacular collection of amazing looking gear at an amazing price.
Yeah, sell your house to buy one speaker.
Which pro audio people, of course, don't necessarily subscribe to.
But that's interesting, isn't it? That, I mean, I'm sure, like me, you spend a lot of the time when you're making records listening to them on car stereos and on cheap little Oratones or NS10s to kind of simulate the other end of the spectrum.
It's true.
Which is what most people will listen to them on, after all. And of course, you know, we're kind of making records in a way that have to appeal across the board. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes these kind of people are obviously looking for that one record that they can... See, this is the only issue I have with the whole high-end thing, is that sometimes, and I remember when I was growing up, I had this friend, and he spent all his time upgrading his hi-fi. He was always talking about his speakers and his amp and his cassette player and his record player, and I went round to his house one day and he had 2 records. And I was the opposite. I was like, I didn't care how bad my hi-fi was. I was just so curious about discovering music, and I think I was worried that it would be a bit like that, and it was. But there's a lot of people selling records and selling the music as well as the hi-fi too.
I think as long as the magic is there in the music, you know, certain people will say that their concept of magic is improved by an amazing system. As professionals, I think you and I just have to say, well, we've made it as good as we
Right.
can possibly make it
Right.
on the systems we've been listening to.
Right.
But there will always be these high-end guys that say, well, my system is much better than your system, you know,
Right.
referring to my studio and stuff.
Right.
And that's an interesting.
And they're probably right, aren't they?
They're almost certainly.
my speakers in my studio, they're not, you know, the ridiculous expensive one. But that's interesting that the people, you know, the people that are making the music in a way are not even hearing it sometimes at the same level, same standard that some of the people that will you know, consume it, you know, will hear it.
These high-end aficionados love to use the word better. You know, my system
Right.
is better
Right.
than that system because da, 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 da. And the pro audio side of the business would say, well, my system, I know my system and it works for me. It's reliable and so on and so on. And they're different parameters.
Yeah.
But I think it's a wonderful hobby, you know, to have,
absolutely.
to always be striving to get the perfect sound at home.
As long as it means you're not just doing it with the same 2 records for your whole life.
I love that story, just 2 records.
It was really true,
Yeah.
and I just realised that his whole kind of relationship to music was completely different to mine. Mine was all about the music, and his was all about the reproduction of the music. So he had, like, I forget what the albums were. I think, you know, maybe Dark Side of the Moon was one of them, you know. But basically, his goal was all about having the perfect reproduction of this one or these 2 records. And to me, I was always curious about what other music was out there. Talking of which, you have a new album out, Alan.
I do. It came out probably 6 months ago now. It's on an Italian label called Frontiers, and they're pretty well known in prog circles, and it's been well received. It's not setting the world alight, but I got some good guests on it. I got Jason Mraz to sing a song. I got Lou Gramm from
amazing.
Foreigner to sing a song, and I actually did a vocal myself, which is unusual to say the least.
Okay.
But it's based on my other passion outside music, which is magic.
Oh wow! Of course, I did notice. Yeah.
Did I do a couple of tricks
No,
during the making
you
of the
didn't.
album? Oh.
I don't remember. No, the best trick you showed me
Look
was...
into my eyes. Yeah.
No, you didn't do that. The best trick you showed me was how to get the David Gilmour squealing sound. Do you remember when you
that's
plugged
right,
the wah wah pedal in the wrong way?
Yeah.
That was magic. For me, that was magic anyway, yeah. So, and you did this album in surround, I guess, too?
Yeah, I've just built a studio on my property. My previous studio was in the house, so my wife, had to put up with a certain amount of
Right.
disruption to the household. No, this is a fully pro studio, brand new, Neve 5088, 32-channel console. No tape machines, I'm afraid, but a very good Pro Tools, and generally we use Pro Tools, but I've got very good Apogee converters.
Right, me too, yeah.
Symphonies, got Symphonies?
I have, and I use the Universal Audio plugins. Do you use the Universal Audio plugins?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing things, yeah.
The reverbs, the plates,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
The only thing I miss is if you use a real plate and you adjust the reverb time,
Yeah.
it goes clunk.
Does it?
And then you can hear how long the reverb is as you let go of the button.
Oh, really?
And I was trying to get Universal to implement that, so that when you adjusted the thing, you would hear how long the reverb was.
Okay, and they're not...
Yeah, no, I think it fell on deaf ears, I think.
They're probably doing it just for you, they probably, yeah.
Do you put compression on your stereo bus or on your 5.1 bus? Or?
I put a tiny little... I'm very much against overcompression of music. Obviously, one of the big issues a lot of music lovers have these days is that a lot of CDs particularly, and also vinyl to be fair too, is brick wall limited. Mm-hmm. And that drives me crazy. I go out my way, as I'm sure you do, to make very beautifully dynamic records where the quiet bits are quiet and the loud bits are loud. And then suddenly you get mastering engineers who feel like they have to push everything against the wall, and it drives me absolutely crazy. So the answer to your question is I put a tiny little bit of limiting across the master bus just to take out the real rogue spikes. But if I can hear it, I don't like it.
Me too.
If I can hear that it's compressing or limiting, I don't like it.
And my general rule is just don't do it.
Yeah.
If it has to be done in mastering, I'll and I'm there, and I say, well, that sounds all right, then I'll go with it. But my philosophy is never compress the mix.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because lots of people will say that you have to compress it to make it sound.
Well, it's the level war. I mean, the level war dictates that to a certain extent that every record has to be as loud as the next man's. Yeah. But my philosophy is if it
turn it up.
Turn it up, exactly.
Use your volume control. That's what it's there for. Yeah, very good.
Thank you for handing the reins over to me for the high-end show, the ambassador.
Pleasure. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Let's finish up by hearing what you're up to. Got a record going, I understand?
I've been working on a record for most of this year, because we're still in 2019, just about at the moment. So most of this year has been working on a new record, which is quite a different record for me. I'm working much more with electronic sound. I can't say too much more about it at the moment because it's not officially announced until a couple of months from now. Quite a different record, and will
it involve a band, or will it be all you?
Most of the record has been me, but obviously I'm going to take it out on the road, so I'm going to put a band together to play it live. I'm going to have quite a spectacular production this time, visual experience this time. It's still a very conceptual record, as I'm sure people that listen to my music will know that, as with you, we like to have concepts that we hang the record from, and I certainly have one here. I'm excited. One of the things I love to do with my music and with my fans is to always confront their expectations. So I don't like to do the same record ever twice. And that's a very, in a way, a very willfully anti-commercial way to conduct your career, because if you have something successful, the logic would say you follow up with something similar, and I'm always the opposite. I'm like, okay, that's worked and people like that. Now what else can I do that's completely different? So I've done something completely different. I'm very curious to see what people will make of it. I always try and make the records very much in a vacuum. I don't think about what people expect, but of course now, having almost finished making the record, I'm very curious to see if people will like it or not.
If you can fill the Albert Hall 3 nights in a row, I think you're pretty safe.
Well, we'll see. After they hear the new record, that might all. No, I mean, I'm actually stepping up to an arena this time. I'm doing the O2 in London, which is a very big space to fill. Which is why I'm thinking definitely in terms of something more visually spectacular. It's exciting. It's a challenge, and it's exciting, and it's scary, and it's all the things that make life worth living, and being a professional musician worth doing.
Terrific. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Alan. Have fun.
Thanks.